MusicalTalk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast. Hello, and welcome to another edition of MusicalTalk. I'm Thos, and I was recently very disappointed to discover that in the Queen's birthday honours list, I am nothing like a dame. Nor am I going to the Lordies, that established house in Parliament that does nothing in particular and does it very well. Well, there you are, 3 totally different musical theatre references in that couple of sentences alone. Get your spotter books out. Well, we've got a marvellously bumper programme for you today. The Edinburgh Festival Fringe looms close, so we're starting to wrap up our reviews of last year and look forward to the future. Later in the programme we'll hear from David Herzog with the latest in his audio blogs on Chwedl, Fairy Tales from Wales, the devised show that he's taking to Edinburgh towards the end of the Festival Fringe. And then after that, we'll be hearing an interview conducted by David with Luke Montague about his new musical, The Silence Between Us, which opens on the 19th of July in Liverpool. And there'll be a chance to hear a song from that. Well, that's wonderful, I hear you say, but what are we going to hear before that? Well, of course, I know, so let me explain. There is a danger sometimes when talking about musical theatre to break it down into its constituent parts in order to analyse it and talk about it. I think we all do it. We can separate one production of a show from another production of that same show. And of course here on MusicalTalk we spend a lot of time talking about the music and or the lyrics together or separately. And we also break it down into other constituent parts like how was the direction, how are the performances, how was the design? Things like that. But of course that's not how musical theatre is designed to be seen. Because actually the whole thing, all those separate parts together, are being put on as a whole. And it is for us to enjoy it, if we're in the audience, as a whole. So sometimes separating a performance from a production can be a little bit reductive. And that's certainly the case today, because we're going to be talking about a show which you could have seen at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe last year and on tour since, and I hope possibly again in the future, by an old friend of this programme called John Hinton. And the show is called the Ensonglopedia of Science. I think that title gives you a clue as to what you're going to get, but we'll discuss that a little bit more later in the programme. But the point I'm trying to make is that John Hinton is such a remarkable performer that it is impossible to separate him from the show. Or at least so it seems to me. I think the show's success depends on a number of prongs. Can that be right? It's tremendously well written. It's tremendously witty. It has great brio and verve. But the most important of the prongs, in fact perhaps the handle which connects to those prongs, see what I'm doing? I'm really pushing this analogy. And that's the person holding it all together, John Hinton. Now, you may be racking your brains to say, where have I heard that name before? Well, he's been on various episodes of MusicalTalk in the past. Over the last 10 or so years, he has written and performed in, more or less as one-man shows about 3 very important figures from history and science. That's Charles Darwin, Albert Einstein and Marie Curie. And he wasn't just telling those people's stories, he was also explaining those people's ideas. And I can tell you, to sit in an audience and have Einstein's different theories of relativity explained to you in a way which is at least graspable in song is remarkable. And John is an astounding performer. And that takes us back to the nub of what I've been saying in this introduction. John, as a performer, makes his material live in a way that I think almost no one else can. They are interdependent in a way that perhaps some shows are not. And I think you'll get to hear that in spades in the following interview, which I conducted with John in Edinburgh in a very loud venue, quite late at night I must say, about the Ensonglopedia of Science. And listening back to it, I've been struck by how much of what I've said complimentarily about this wonderful show is not just about the show, but about John the performer, the man who makes it come to life. The show is a tour de force, and he is a force of nature. So together they are a tour de force of nature. which is a lovely new coinage which no one else is ever going to use. Well, enough waffle from me for the time being, I think. Let's get down to the meat and potatoes of today's episode. As I say, it's an interview I conducted with John Hinton at last year's Edinburgh Festival Fringe, and it explains all about the Ensonglopedia of Science. And if you think that slightly forced first word, Ensonglopedia, means that there's likely to be lots of songs in the show, you're correct. And that's equally true of this episode, because John has very kindly said we can play a couple of songs from the Ensonglopedia of Science. And we're going to. Here's one now.
Atom, from the Greek words a, meaning not, and temnein, to cut, because it was thought that atoms were unbreakable and utterly unshakable. No part of them was takeable, their oneness unmistakable. But now we know they're breakable, and we do it quite a lot. An astronaut has trillions of atoms, and that's just in a single strand of armpit hair. So hold on to your noses and let us see what happens if we take a trip in there. A-T-O-M, impossible to count cause there's so many of them. A-T-O-M-I-C, so small that they are totally impossible to see. So let's dive down to the depths of the atom. It's a world so wild that it's difficult to fathom. The tiny things whizzing round the outside are electrons, 5 or 6 femtometers wide. A simple fact that you've got to embrace is that most of an atom is empty space. If an atom was as big as Westminster Cathedral, the nucleus would be a baby bee busy buzzing in the middle. A-T-O-M, impossible to count cause there's so many of them. A-T-O-M-I-C, so small that they are totally impossible to see. Now back to the B. That B is made of hadrons, which are protons, or neutrons, which are held together with the help of gluons. Now we're getting quite advanced for the brightest sparks, but hadrons actually consist of quarks. And of what sort of things do those quarks comprise? Well, if you can tell us that, you win the Nobel Prize. A-T-O-M, even air is literally swarming with them. A-T-O-M-G, I can't believe that there are also many, many trillions of those things in me.
John, I have to say, it's my great pleasure to see you repeatedly here on the Fringe.
Yes.
And this year you have, if anything, sort of surpassed yourself.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's for you to tell us what your new show is and how it differs. Because up to now you've mined a very successful scene of dead scientists and historians and people of note in the past.
That's right.
And this time you're really taking their work in a slightly different way, but I don't want to preempt you. You explain what you're doing.
Absolutely. Okay, so, looking at the previous shows first, I've been doing a trilogy of shows about Charles Darwin, Albert Einstein, and Marie Curie. That started 2009, so I've been doing them for 8 years now and touring that trilogy. And along the way, I've discovered lots of interesting things in science that I haven't quite managed to fit into a show yet. So that was kind of the genesis of this show. I wanted to find a way of talking about all of the other things I've learned along the way, because I've kind of rediscovered science since doing these shows.
I remember you telling me that the last time we spoke, which I think was a couple of years ago.
Yes, it would have been.
You were saying exactly that thing, but actually that it sort of reawakened the educator in you in a strange way.
Yes, absolutely. I loved science at school, but you have to make options. You have to make decisions when you're going through education, and I chose drama instead of science, and the arts over the more learned subjects.
Differently learned subjects.
Yeah. Well, indeed, absolutely, and they're regarded as such, strangely, maybe, but who knows? Anyway, that's a big discussion about the value of the arts, obviously, but since researching these scientists, I've become absolutely fascinated by so many different areas of science. And what I've found in this show is a way of uniting all those other strands into one well, I can't really call it a narrative. It's not really a narrative.
It's a scientific review.
It's a review. Yes, it's a collection. Yeah, it's a nerd's collection of facts about science that I put into song. Then
But the thing we have to, you used the word nerd there, but I think we need to clarify that slightly. A nerd is merely a pejorative sense for someone who's really enthusiastic.
Yes.
And enthusiasm, I think, is very much at the cornerstone of your performances.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I am definitely enthusiastic, and I hope I've got a bit of knowledge to back that up as well. And
what you do, I mean, in previous shows, people have said, I mean, the Einstein show was so much more than the story of Einstein, wasn't it? It was, you were explaining some of his special and his, you know better than I, but his general theories of relativity and ways of engaging with an audience, as well as, in some way, illuminating his, at least, character. Yes,
I did a lot of audience experiments, shall we say. Yes, I used the audience to show various aspects of his theories, exactly, which is a great way of doing it. And
so in some senses this show is the one that tonally feels more like that one than perhaps the Curie and the Darwin one.
Okay, because I'm also using
fine,
yes, absolutely.
You didn't do it in the others, but that one was so profoundly engaging through experiment, or at least explanation of experiment. That's what I found so fascinating about that one and today.
Yes.
But I want to say, I think this is, I mean, what you're saying is absolutely true, but I don't want anyone to go away with the idea that this is a series of offcuts, because it certainly isn't that. It's, It's a cohesive show, which is entertaining from first to last, but also fascinating. What I like about it is, well, the conceit, isn't it, if I may explain it, is it's the A to Z of science in a way, or at least there are 26 different subjects from science.
Yes.
For which you have written a song for each.
Yes.
So you have a song for something beginning with A, a song beginning with something with B, and then you have given yourself the extra challenge.
The almost impossible task,
I think that's for you to tell me.
Right, yes.
Of either singing each song either in a style that begins with the same letter or using an instrument that begins with the same letter.
Yes, absolutely.
So how did that idea come to be? I mean, at what stage did you think?
Why on earth? Yeah, well, exactly. It's a little bit too simple. You know, I have to give myself the tighter the parameters that I give myself, bizarrely, the freer I can then be. I mean, that's part of it, and also it forces me to push myself in lots of other ways as well. Because then I've been a songwriter for years, for decades, and I'd say there's probably a style of music that I've developed over that time, a genre of music that is a little bit John, right? And so if I'm going to write a whole raft of new songs about science and avoid them all being just versions of each other, I have to set myself a very strict rule to do that, and all the better to make that rule very clear to the audience as well, and so that they can play a game, exactly, so that they can they can be part of the show as well, and that does engage people a lot more as well. I've found
we have a little check sheet that we as the audience can tick off with some rather splendid pencils, I should say.
Yes, I do give away a free pencil in my show. Yes.
Well, I think I've got yours, which
fantastic.
If you need it back.
No. We've got a few thousand of those. Don't worry.
My breast pocket. I've only got the one.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic, and it's interesting actually that thing you say about creativity, because I've had this discussion with other people. They say a blank piece of paper is almost impossible to work with, but the moment you've made a decision about what it's going to be about, or start putting some lines or borders or parameters, actually it's much more freeing process.
Yes.
Did you find that?
Yes, absolutely. I totally find that. I mean, I find that with running workshops, in drama workshops as well, with kids, that actually the tighter the rules you give them for an exercise, the more freeing it could be. It's true for improvisation shows as well. If you just say to someone, okay, improvise, what on earth are they going to do? About what? And that it usually ends up not being very interesting. But if you are very very particular, it's got to be in a certain location. The people have got to have certain characteristics. You've got to get a certain line in at some point. You've got to mention this word. Then suddenly it becomes a lot more interesting. It becomes a game.
It's funny because that really ties in with the Fringe. There are so many improvisation shows, and over the years I've seen so many improvised musicals. And that thing at the beginning where the performers ask you to name exactly the things you said, a location, a genre, whatever it is. it seems like they're making it more complicated for themselves, but the reality is, in fact, that you are giving them what they need to respond to. So, in fact, they are making it easier. It's a trick of the trade.
Totally. The most advanced form of improvisation is where you give them just a title at the beginning, which of course does happen up here. There are companies who do exactly that, Baby Wants Candy and so on. You give them just a title and they run with it. They make a musical just on that title. Whoa. Yeah, that's tricky.
So let us take us back to the A to Z of songs here.
Yep.
In your Ensonglopedia of Science.
That's right, we haven't mentioned the name yet,
It's a great name for a show, by the way. But you were talking about how and quite rightly, it creates a variety for the audience.
Yep.
It gives you something slightly different to bounce off each time.
Yes.
And presumably gives you mental hooks that you can say, all right, now it's the a cappella one as for A or whichever as you go through.
Yep.
But how easy was it for you when you were in the planning and creating stage to come up with 26 different song styles or instruments? I do notice a mini vacuum cleaner does come up in one. So
yes.
You have been creative.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
And a theremin, by the way.
And the theremin,
10
yes.
extra points for the theremin.
Yes, great. I mean, what I then need to do, once I've set myself those very tight, rules, I then need to make a show which has a shape. And that is a whole other layer on top of it. I need to build it, some of that works remarkably well, that I decided the first song is going to be a cappella, and then I add body percussion, so I'm using, there's an instrument, but I haven't yet picked up an instrument, and then for the third song I use the first instrument, and then for the fourth song it really, the beat kicks in and it all gets a lot louder. And
I think D&E are my favourite songs, by the way.
Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah. Okay, fantastic.
And I like the contrast between D&E as well.
Yes.
Because it's very different and got very different audience reactions today.
Yes.
Both positive, but in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So from one moment to the next you can completely undercut the mood of the room and do something completely different. But still, in that, you've got to keep in mind the overall shape. You've got to have a journey, especially because there's not a narrative. There's still a narrative of mood, and
a profile for the piece for audiences to engage with.
Yes, exactly, absolutely. There has to be a clear halfway point. There has to be a feeling to leave the audience with at the end as well. And from you to Z, there's a united feeling to that part of the show.
Fusion, isn't there? Well, I don't think anyone begrudges you that. It gives you a big finale. Although, I've got to tell you this, the thing that most impressed me about the whole show, and I loved it from first to last, but was the last. By which I mean you do your 26 songs or subjects, and then you do your review song at the very end. And this is the thing that astounds me.
Yes.
Is that you go back and you recap on all the scientific things that we've discussed.
Yes.
Through the alphabet.
Backwards, yes.
And that is the point. Now, they always say, it used to be a sign of an agile mind, asking someone if they could do the alphabet backwards.
Okay.
And most people, a number of people can, but it takes a little bit of tooth pulling to get there.
Yes.
Some people are quicker at it than others.
Yeah.
But I was trying to connect this with the idea of how you must be remembering lyrics, because anyone who learns a song, if they're learning a song properly, knows you have to learn the songs almost independently of each line. In case you muddle up a line, you've got to know where you can jump on it again later on. If you were doing a song A to Z, it seems to me, you've got your automatic hooks, because the alphabet.
We know the alphabet. Yeah,
exactly. You know that O is going to follow N.
Yeah.
So if you fluff in, not that you ever would, but if one fluffed in, you could go to O. Doing it backwards means that safety net has disappeared, unless you are truly the genius I believe you to be.
Well,
discuss.
I mean, that song was certainly the hardest to learn. I did many performances before I was able to do that one, get that one down pat. Also, today, I overran a little bit, so I had to do that song a lot faster than I normally do it.
Tom Lear'd it.
Yeah, well, basically, yes, I did. I added that song after I'd actually started making the show, because it kind of needed... Yes, exactly, because the last song, as in Z, is, shall we say, a bit philosophical, and if you leave the audience going out on that, it's a nice song, it's a lovely song, but there's a bit of head scratching. So it needs something punchy to send the audience out with.
And yet it's almost throwaway, because it feels neat in the sense that you start recapping and everyone goes, this is a recap, and I suspect 50% of the audience aren't really twigging you're doing it backwards. It's like it's like, for me, it was the most amazingly agile piece of intellectualism as well as great performance. sort of tossed away at the end of, you've had the show, this is just your little coda. Now, and for me, I genuinely dragged my jaw off the floor as I left the auditorium.
And also, most people literally aren't listening to that song because they're marking their pages.
Oh, of course, yes.
That's the moment when you get to actually see the answers to the quiz. So I don't mind if no one listens to that. That's absolutely fine. I'm glad you listened.
Today, you had at least one person in the room just going, this is amazing. And it is. It's amazing. John, you are an amazing performer. I told you this immediately after the show, and I will say it again.
Yep.
You don't just own the stage. You own the room. The moment you come on, you come on in almost a caricaturist professor kind of a way. You're wearing a white lab coat.
Yep.
You're wearing a bow tie.
Yes.
And forgive me, I hope you won't mind me saying this. I mean in the nicest possible way. You have Mad Professor hair.
Well, no, that's done before the show. I mean, you might still be in a little bit now, should we say?
Really eccentric Professor hair now.
Yeah, yes, exactly. No, I do fluff it up a little bit before the show, but obviously there's me in that as well. Yes.
But you come on, and in fact you were engaging with the audience before the show even starts.
Yeah.
So I suspect that must be also very important, because I'm guessing the age range of your audience is slightly different. If you put on a musical about Marie Curie, for example, as you have, I suspect on the whole you don't get that many children.
Yeah.
Whereas this is very clearly a show for 5-year-olds to 95-year-olds.
Yes.
So it seems to me.
Yes.
And that's such a difficult balance. How are you? I mean, I saw how you're doing it, but how do you intellectually think I'm going to get everyone on board with me?
The talking to the audience as they come in is something that I've actually done in all of these shows, but usually, obviously, I do it in character. I mean, Marie Curie was a little bit different because there was a John character in that show as well, and that's who met the audience as they were coming in. In this one, it's very much me, except, as you say, a slightly more eccentric me, perhaps.
Lovely, perhaps, sir. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. I am a little bit eccentric, maybe, from day to day, but yeah. Meeting the audience is very important to me. I mean, it helps me to gauge the audience as well. It's kind of putting them in a certain state of mind to receive the show. And certainly because I know that this is a show that appeals to different audiences, I'm not going to know before people actually turn up what age, what demographic we're going to have in the room. Sometimes
up, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Sometimes there are lots of kids, sometimes there are no kids. So that's kind of important for me to know. It helps a little bit anyway. And I don't know, I think people have seen my shows before and they come again, and that's maybe part of my signature, perhaps, that I am there to receive them as they come in. I don't just blank stage, da-da, okay, it's me, hi. But, I'm there. I like to think I'm one of them as well.
Thing, isn't it? Yes, because you're pitching to them, but also you're gauging them, and therefore...
Yes, and that's their moment as well, for them to be able to chuck anything out there. I've had requests at that moment for songs from previous shows. I ask at the beginning, have you got a favorite area of science? People say, radium. And then I go, I know a song about that. Oh yeah, so do we. And we have a little sing-along in that opening. That's happened twice during this run, that people have requested specifically my song about radium. So it's lovely.
I'm right in thinking that the Relativity song is from the Einstein show.
It's based on the version in the Einstein show. I've completely changed the lyrics to make it more general. Basically, in that song, in this show, I cover both areas of relativity. I explain all of relativity, well, as much as you can in 3 minutes. Whereas in the Einstein show, I spend the time teaching people the hand gestures to the rap in a bit more detail, explaining more specifically about what the equation E equals mc squared is about.
So it's more of a dance move now, isn't it?
And now it's just a dance move thrown into the choruses, yes.
Have you spotted with your different audiences different points of the show where different groups, different sort of age groups pick up or perk up?
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's, for example...
Not to suggest they're not perked up, it's just a particular attention is paid.
Absolutely. I mean, there's the very clear difference between the songs C and D, for example. C being Caribbean Calypso number, which is, shall we say, for the younger parts of the audience, and then I hit them with some drum and bass in D, which is aimed at the maybe slightly older age category.
You got some good laughs from that category today, I thought.
Yeah, I think so.
You just recognised it in a strange...
Yeah, totally, absolutely. So there, if there are swathes of the audience who I maybe haven't won over by C, then then D is there to rescue them, shall we say.
And then there's the soothing balm of E, if you like.
And
you know,
yes,
the lovely
absolutely.
swing, the electro swing.
Yeah, exactly.
They both appeal to me. As I say, D and E are just so lovely together.
Okay,
they
great.
make a really great double act, as it were, if that makes any kind of sense.
Cool.
I noticed just today that there was a good set of young people in, by which I mean children.
Yep.
And J for Jurassic and dinosaurs.
Yes.
Good.
Oh, that's a crowd pleaser. Yeah, it's a
Stick a
crowd
dinosaur
pleasing subject,
Yeah.
isn't it? That was going to be a song about John. It was going to be, J for John, and I was going to list all the different scientists in the world whose name is John. And
a lovely idea,
then
but-
I got my artwork through, white line drawings that are on the poster, and, I'd asked for some sciencey pictures, and one of them was a diplodocus. I went, oh, of course, I don't have any dinosaurs in the show. So I had to scrap my idea of that song and replace it with the dinosaur song, with the Jurassic song.
And yet I learned something from that today. I
Yeah.
genuinely didn't know the Diplodocus or Diplodocus. I don't know the right pronunciation, but I appreciate there's one for the song,
Yeah.
and it has to be. Lovely rhymes to that one as well, by the
Yes,
way.
there are some interesting rhymes.
But I didn't know that Tyrannosaurus Rex was the later era. So
Exactly.
actually,
The film gets it wrong.
Doesn't it
Jurassic
just?
Park. No, there
Not
were no,
peer-reviewed.
not peer. Well, I'm sure it was, but no, these films decide to just sidestep their peer reviewers, which I, of course, don't. I regard my peer reviewers in very high esteem.
I should say, and you've spoken about peer review in the past, in the
Yeah.
previous shows, you wanted to be absolutely certain you
Yeah.
were getting it right, and I think
Yeah.
that's an entirely commendable thing. You have performance license and dramatic license, but not fact license. That's what
Yeah.
you've given yourself, I think.
Yes.
And I think that is marvellous. And there's a little program for this show, which is on the back. The back side is the quiz, the
Yep.
front side is the program.
Yep.
And the thing that sticks out is that you have, and quite rightly, you have generously given the names of all your peer review panelists. as
Yep,
it were.
yep.
And it's a sizable number of people, which
Yes.
I'm not surprised by because it's such a broad range of science you're adding in.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I love that fact that actually no one's going to go away with all the facts you offer us, because for every letter there are plenty. It's not just one fact per atom, is it, or one item?
Exactly.
But so it's a little bit of a smorgasbord or a lucky dip that
Yep.
we, the audience, can use our own personal interests and grab, or even if it's just trivial knowledge in the sense of, it's probably not going to be vastly important to me in my daily life as a civil servant to know that Tyrannosaurus Rex was a bit after the Diplodocus.
Yes.
But I'm going to be jolly well using that. I don't mind telling you.
Great.
And there's plenty of other things as well. I was actually very interested in the song, which I wondered if people would engage with. I think it's M, but it's the one about pain receptors.
N for
right.
neuron.
Forgive me.
Yes,
One letter out. There we go.
exactly. Yes, it's lovely. I do on my little, I don't know if I want to give away the genres because that spoils the game for people. But
There's an N genre. Let's just
there
say.
is an N genre that I tell a little story about a signal that travels from the finger to the brain and then back to the hand. And follows all the different. I mean, I've been fascinated about how the brain works. That's one of the things I knew I needed to get into the show because I've done research on that for various shows, and then it's not ever quite fit. How neurons work. So that's a fascinating area. I love that song.
And the problem is, it's almost too big a subject to get in a song, isn't it? That must have been a problem for you. Where do you edit your knowledge? Because even now there must be 100 of sack full of facts sitting on your cutting room floor.
Yeah, absolutely, including lots of facts about different scientists whose name is John. Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example of the peer reviewers being absolutely central. I came up with the title of a song, which was The Olfactory Orifice of the Octopus.
Yes.
And the title came first. It was very much like, oh, that's a nice turn of phrase that's just popped into my brain.
I refer you to early comment about eccentricity. Eccentricity.
Indeed. And so I did a little bit of research on the internet about whether octopuses can indeed smell. I found out from an article that they have smell receptors all the way up their arms. They've got lots of them, so I wrote a song about that. And then I thought, I'd just better check this. So I contacted the octopus expert at the Natural History Museum. And the Octozar. And he wrote back to me and said, no, you've got this completely wrong.
Oh, no.
That article was completely wrong. Here are some articles about the smell receptors of octopuses. And in fact, the real story was almost more interesting than the one that I had researched. So I had I kept the title, scrapped the rest, rewrote the song based on the articles that I was sent by the expert.
And that is now another. In fact, there are two facts I'm pulling out of that song for my own personal lexicon of things to amaze people with. Then shouting "come back," obviously. And the first is the fact that the purpose changes over the life of the octopus in question, which I found absolutely fascinating.
Yes.
I also loved your very subtle and clever way of suggesting what it does become without offending any children audiences.
Yes,
it was nicely
sure.
done.
Good.
And I think you can picture that, and just the use of the word rude, I think allows
us to think about, imagine.
But then there's this fantastic little throwaway at the end about the octopus having 3 hearts.
3 hearts.
Yes. I want more of that, and then we're into the next letter.
Yes, octopuses have 3 hearts. True. There's a fact.
So, but all of this is fabulous. So, just as a walk up without great knowledge, I have gone away with so many more interesting facts, so many more I've forgotten, or don't immediately chime because I was thinking of I'm still enjoying the octopus stories.
Yeah. Okay.
So I may not have paid quite enough attention when we got to P. I'm still enjoying O.
Sure.
See, I can do the alphabet the right way forward, but I can't do it. So there are so many things like that. So what are there any songs that you've had to, apart from the John Scientists, that you've had to that have been replaced by other better songs, or you really sort of wish you could have put in but they didn't fit the profile of the show? Where are your casualties?
Oh goodness me! I mean, there's so many areas of science. I've had people come up to me and say, it's very good, but there's not much chemistry, and I'm going, oh yes, absolutely right. I is kind of chemistry, but other than that, it's true. So I need another show. I need a whole other show about that. Electricity, I haven't explained. I do some of the electromagnetic spectrum. I don't do my favourite bits of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Which are just for the record.
Light is everybody's favourite, right?
Well, it's very helpful.
Yes, I don't cover that in the show, bizarrely.
I suppose that's true. And have you written any songs which have then had to fall by the wayside? There's plenty of subjects. Science. It gets bigger every day. Science.
Well, yes,
like history,
absolutely.
enough.
Oh yeah, I've got other songs up my sleeve that didn't quite fit in the show. Absolutely, yes.
So there is possible Ensonglopedia V2.
At least potentially. It might not be science though. It has the potential to become a brand that might spread into other areas of knowledge. So this may potentially be my bridge. My bridge show out of science. Who knows? I'm not sure yet.
Can I please put a bid in for history, because I'd love to see you
Ensonglopedia of History. Okay, that's a very broad topic.
You may have to build a second alphabet. But well, you make it. I have every faith with you, John, to be honest, because you'll never let me down. Since I saw Darwin here up at the Pleasance, wasn't it?
Little cabins,
stapled together porter cabin.
That's right, yes, it was. Yes.
And now you are quite rightly at the museum, the Gilded Balloon at the museum.
Yes, that's right,
and
Museum of Scotland.
Right about you being in a museum. And museums are so not just about the past; they are also about the future.
Yes.
They are themselves a bridge.
Yes, that's right.
When I saw you were there, I thought John has sort of done it. It's come right in every possible sense. Everything is so fitting.
Good, yes. It's such a lovely venue. It's a purpose-built performance space, which, as you say, there's not many of those around. And
yes, it's a proper stage and I must say, comfy chairs. For
really
the audience,
comfy chairs for the audience. Yes.
This is always a silly question, but actually, it often reveals something.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite or second favourite song? I'm going to rule out the song about your daughter, which I want to come back to.
Oh, okay, fine. So the oldest song in the show is S. Okay, that is a song that I've been doing for over a decade. That and R, which we've already talked about, the relativity rap, are the only two that predate this show. All of the others I've written specifically. Both S and R I've altered for this show, but S is S for space, S for the solar system. I have been singing for many years. And now, finally, I found a way to put that into a show.
It would have looked odd for Marie Curie, wouldn't it?
Yeah, she couldn't have burst into that. Maybe Einstein could have burst into that, who knows? But no. So I guess that one I really enjoy performing. I enjoy performing the Neuron song, which we've already talked about as well. And I enjoy hitting myself in B as well. So.
Well, can I tell you? I know that you train for this, but you're a great physical presence, you're a physical performer.
Yep.
But actually, you've got something even more than physicality, which is that ability to be silly. They often go together, but they don't always go together. Sometimes dignity can weigh physicality down in certain performers.
Yes, right.
And if I may say, you have that joie de vivre and silliness, and that is a commodity which is so engaging. And if I may say, once again, the young people in the audience particularly love it.
Yeah.
I've spotted this in my own life, even just with nephews and nieces.
Yeah.
I've discovered if you, as a obvious grown-up, do silly things, the engagement levels go through the roof.
Yes.
And you are so good at that. And you're playing to more than just 2 or 3 nephews. There's an auditorium full of paying visitors.
Right. Well, I am by no means a clown.
No.
But I have studied it, and I can, I feed in the bits of that work for me,
But it's also an element of a state of mind, actually, silliness, I think. It's part of it. It's a slice of a kind of sense of humour. And I think I can trace elements of it all the way through, but it was lovely to see it writ large today. And it was lovely to see, certainly there were a group of children sitting a couple of rows in front of me who seemed to be responding very well to it.
Yeah, that's good.
But there were a couple of other differences, it seems to me, this year as well. This isn't just John not doing a person but doing science. This is you experimenting, it seems, with form as well, because you have projections and animation, which are all wonderful. There's also a recurring sort of animated leitmotif of you, if I may say.
There is, yes.
You in a spacesuit.
There is.
And a very stylised spacesuit, with just with your, if I may say, your particularly grinning face through the visor. And it's immediately hilarious, and I don't know why.
Great, so that little character, 4 of the animations were designed by a friend of mine, an American friend of mine who's living in Korea, who made... who basically made the 4 best animations in the show, and I did my best with the rest of the animations. Yes.
Well, gosh, the strings to your bow are immense.
But he designed that character and put my face in the spacesuit, which is lovely. So then I borrowed that and put it in the ones that I did as well.
Which creates cohesion and unity as well, which is lovely actually, because I noticed to me, it seems as an audience that each animation was slightly different in style and feel, which also added to the variety that we were getting. Everything was fresh with every new letter in every possible way.
Great, yes. So there are things that run through. There have to be, otherwise it just feels like totally, hodgepodge. There have to be things that run through the whole thing. I hope I found them in sufficient quantity. And but there has to be that variety as well. We have to keep that variety, because I think that's one of the things that the show really has. It has
gives it pace and pep, which is really useful. And I also noticed, I think, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it looked to me like this is the first time you've collaborated in a songwriting way, at least on 1 or 2 of the songs. There are some co-writer lyrics. So co-writer credits.
Yes, that's right.
How have you been finding that? Because that's a difference, isn't it? For you?
Well, with 2 of the previous shows, the Einstein show and the Curie show, I've collaborated with my now wife, Jo. So,
that's a very warm collaboration.
Yes, very, very, very lovely collaboration, yes. And she is currently the tour booker for this show as well, so she's still part of the team. She's very much up here helping in Edinburgh. For those 2 shows, I worked with her on all of the music. For this one, she has helped on 4 or 5 of them and is kind of a musical advisor throughout as well. I've collaborated with my dad, who is a musical director and very good pianist, on a number of the tracks as well.
How wonderful to have that in the family.
Yes, it's great, absolutely. And with a guy called Vlad who's laid down some beats for the slightly dancier tracks as well. So for various reasons, I've used various different people to help me out with the music as well. It's just fantastic. It helps in exactly the same way as different peer reviewers will give their input to different songs.
It's just different spheres, isn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you must have learnt quite a lot, not just intellectually with the knowledge and the facts, but also the way to make various kinds of music. I assume, I know you are very musically minded, but there are an awful lot of different styles there. There must be 1 or 2 that you simply didn't know about. And different instruments. There's at least one case where you say to the audience, I had to learn to play this instrument, which to my mind looks like a lute, and I think it was L.
It was a lyre.
A lyre?
Yes, it was a lyre, yes, indeed, yes. Yeah, so you didn't get that point, I'm afraid.
No, I didn't. Yes, because a lute is more like a mandolin, whereas
Yes.
lyre is more like a mini harp.
Yes, that's right. Yes, exactly.
How do you find a lyre these days?
Oh well. Guess what? There are internet sites you can go to that have most things in the world. Yeah. So I've learned a few new instruments. I mean, that line that I say in the show, what I said in the show today, that's kind of throwaway because shall we say, I've kind of deliberately detuned that instrument so it's not very pretty to listen to. But there are certainly, for example, I play a zither, which I had to learn specifically. I knew previously about 3 chords on a mandolin and had to learn significantly more for this show. Ditto ukulele. Theremin I'd never picked up in my life before.
What a wonderful thing to be able to play, though.
It's great. It's great.
It's a modern theremin, I should point out.
Yes, this is a little handheld theremin which is only about 10 centimetres, whereas obviously the proper ones are a good metre in length.
A wallop of a machine. Well, they're 1940s things, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
But they do give one good vibration, so why not?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, indeed. Yeah.
But I thought you're so amazingly versatile, and what I love is the fact that you also speak amongst show your working, as they used to say on exam papers.
Right.
I don't know if you picked it up, you may have been concentrating, but you've got a rather lovely sort of foot device that allows you to record an excerpt of noise or song or music more than once and different bits.
Yes.
Which it seems to be foot operated, and then it repeats it back and forth, so it creates a loop, and you can re-loop other things and add loops later on.
Yes, that's
whilst
right.
you then sing to them. So first of all, technically, it is amazing.
Yes.
It's a fantastic bit of kit. It's a fantastic piece of stagecraft to watch you do so.
Right.
Whilst talking to the audience, it's not like you stop and concentrate. You carry on the patter.
Yep.
Whilst at the same time operating this machine,
that's true.
Whilst at the same time playing whatever instrument it is, and then sometimes playing a different bit of that instrument for a second recording, and then later on in the song, there's another song, isn't there, where you actually add lyrics later on, which become you become your own backing singer. And I can tell you this: there were people of all ages, but particularly the children, and me, gasping at the wonder of it all, the wonderment of your performance and what you were doing, and the technical aspects of creating a song out of a foot pedal, of half a lyre, and and your genius, if I may say.
Okay.
I just need to record that. It's fantastic.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. I mean, the loop pedals are wonderful, aren't they? I mean, they do all your work for you. Yes, it's a loop pedal. Yeah.
But it's still an amazing bit of kit, and being able to use it as deftly and as adroitly as you do is a stunning thing.
Okay, well, thank you.
And I like the fact that actually I think the first time we see that is the lyre song. So your detuned lyre.
I use it in H and then in L and then again in U, and so it makes a few appearances. Yes.
But you said you sort of detuned the lyre to make it a slightly scrabbly sound.
Yeah.
But then you do make 2 very distinct sounds of it, which actually work really together on the loop machine, and then you sing over it. So actually you may have sort of deconstructed the lute, but you then reconstructed music from it. So it's It's very dexterous things you're doing, intellectually, talentedly, everything across the board is remarkable.
Okay.
And let us get on to the song, which is ostensibly about your new daughter, and congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you very much.
I've got to ask, she's got a lovely name. Do you mind if
Thalia. Her name is Thalia.
It's a lovely name, but also it does make me think once again of Tom Lehrer and the elements, because of thulium and thallium. I'm sure that can't be what your name is.
She's not specifically named after an element of the periodic table, no. No, she's named after one of the muses.
Oh, wonderful, even better. Yes, well. And it is a ready-made stage, so if Thespis isn't available, let's go for one of the others.
Sure.
That song does something amazing, because it's ostensibly about new life in your daughter.
Yes.
But it is also about us as individuals, and what's lovely about it is it's not cloying or sickly. Not that it ever would be, but it isn't that. We, the audience, I think, draw more from it, and you help us in that direction. So it is about the wonder of being in a strange way.
Every line in that song is about every person in the world. It's not, obviously it's kind of, I do it as an ode to her, but there's not a single lyric in there that doesn't apply to every single person on earth.
But it does something else. We were talking about the profile of the piece and the narrative and the fact that it doesn't have per se a story. But what you have been able to do with that song, which perhaps you haven't been able to do quite so much in the other songs for obvious reasons, is actually it adds a bit of heart. Because it's a bit about John, and it's a bit about Thalia, and it's a bit about everyone. But actually there is genuine love in the song for obvious reasons, and the audience got that.
Yes.
There were even sort of few, not patronising pantomime R's, but actually genuine, sincere R's from a few people in the audience about how lovely it was, and how, and I'm sure she shall, because she's a very lucky young lady. But how wonderful to have a song sung in public and written about you.
I hope so. I hope she grows up to love the song.
Well, I love the song, and I'm not your daughter, so I can tell you that now.
Great.
Both facts are true.
Okay.
So, but it is an amazing song, and because it comes so close to the end of the show, it fits perfectly. It adds just an extra dimension, so there's just that lovely little bit of emotional chewiness at the end as well.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Did you always imagine you were going to try and get that kind of feeling and sentiment in?
Yes. I think it's vital. I think it's vital to get some sort. We're in a show that, because of its structure, has to be has the potential to become quite methodical. You've got to get that in at some point. And so I was definitely beating myself up to find a way to reach people's hearts as well.
Engage
obviously
in that different way.
Yes, and I knew from before she was born that I wanted to try to write a song for her. I actually started writing the first few lyrics to that as I was trying to get some sleep on the floor in their delivery room.
Oh, well done you.
So it's very close to the heart, to the bone.
Right,
yeah, absolutely.
It's not the same parallel at all, but it's interesting. Are you aware of Cole Porter? He wrote a song called At Long Last Love, and it's got a fantastic set of lyrics. But he wrote half of them having been, at the moment he was waiting for the ambulance to pick him up, after he'd been paralysed from falling on his horse.
Oh, wow, okay.
I mean, it's obviously not quite the same thing at all, but it is what do you do when you're rolling on the floor?
Yeah.
In his case, painful situation, in your case, a sleepless environment. But creativity comes from unusual well springs, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
I suppose is what I'm grasping at.
Yes, sometimes it does. I mean, the important thing for creative people is not to rely on those moments as well. You have to put in the hours and you have to just say, I'm going to write a song today and I'm not leaving this desk until I've done it, you know.
The perspiration aspect rather than it,
absolutely. But obviously if the inspiration does come, then use it, you know.
So how has it been received?
It's fantastic. I mean, all the audiences have been so lovely, and mainly because there's such a variety of audiences, and you know, people of all of various ages, people, so you know, scientists, totally non-scientists, or you know, they will come up afterwards. All human life is there in that room. From a lot younger than the 7+ that we recommend as well, you know, and you know, young, you know, well, Thalia, for example, is 8 months old. She watches most of the performances, so that's lovely as well. But certainly other younger kids have seen it, and a lot of people without kids as well who love it. It's been very warmly received. I've done a bit of a tour before getting here as well. And it's lovely that people keep coming back to the other shows and so on.
There is, I mean, you were talking at the beginning about making sure the songs don't sound too Johnish, but there is certainly a Johnish genre developing, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yes, despite myself. Yes.
Did you, I mean, seriously, did you, even 10 years ago, imagine yourself doing this kind of show or series of shows?
No.
The educationalist entertainer. Which is sort of what you are.
Yeah, no, not at all. About 10 years ago, I was first sort of starting to decide that I really needed to mount a solo show. I needed to because you know, for lots of reasons, financially, you know, that's the viable way of touring a show is to do it on your own. And Charles Darwin was the obvious first choice for a solo show to do because he's been my hero forever. And then the science came after that, really. I mean, it came because Charles Darwin was a scientist, so, you know...
That's what he does.
That's what he does, so who's going to be the next scientist? Oh, okay, I'll do another scientist. Oh, add another one. Oh, okay, it's all about science now, why not? It's great. So, no, I guess I had no idea that it would be science that I would be concentrating on to such an extent, but I've loved every part of that journey and loved all the discovery that I've made along the way. I wouldn't share things with an audience if I didn't find them fascinating for myself.
And that's also interesting. It is the enthusiasm. This is actually where we came in on this conversation. It is your enthusiasm, which helps engender enthusiasm in others.
Yeah,
and that is a real connector. That's the bridge from the stage to the audience and back again, I find. And to me, it's always been a privilege to see your shows for that very, very thing.
Okay.
In different ways and in different levels in different shows. But actually, there's always, you are very good at connecting. And I admire it.
Yes, and I have to rekindle that enthusiasm, of course, every time I perform the show. And and the songs do it, the facts at the heart of it do it, the audience obviously does it, because there's that feedback thing, if I see in their eyes that they're connecting to what I'm singing about, then that pushes me to the next level. Yes, absolutely, positive circle. So,
how can people follow you and the show online?
We're at Ensonglopedia on Twitter and facebook.com/Ensonglopedia. I am Johnny_Acecraft as well.
Which takes you right back to your songwriting roots from 10, 15 years ago.
Exactly, which is the band that did the song about space. Yes, so Spaley and Acecraft is my band from way back. That's right.
John, for me, I keep using the word privilege, but you are a master. I was going to say a mesmerizer, but a mesmerizer is ultimately a fake, and you're not a fake. You mesmerize in the sense that I can't take my eyes off of you when you're on stage, right, in that sense. But actually, you're an educator and an entertainer. And I think of all the great things that I can describe you, I can call you... I think you are an engager. And I salute you for it. Your shows are always great. I look forward to the next one, whether it be science or not. I do think the Ensonglopedia of X is something to watch out for, and I look forward to it.
Great, well, fantastic. Look forward to seeing you there in the audience.
So thank you so much for talking to me again, John, and I hope to see you again next year or soon after that.
Pretty soon. There'll be another one pretty soon. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Now, the theory of relativity is a theory of time and space. Well, of space-time. Right, we are going to need a fat baseline. Oh, das ist sehr fat. Okay, is everybody ready to learn about the relativity, yeah? Yeah, you'd better come prepared. This is MC Squared, here to tell you that relativity need not make you scared. Ich bin the crazy head rapper who's there to declare that the E is the M to the C to the square. This is energy mass equivalence. There's no ambivalence. It's a theory that has been confirmed by all available evidence. I'll set the world aflame with my outrageous claim. There is no such thing as a fixed reference frame. I'm gonna give reality a brand new face. Gonna communicate my case, gonna prove it to be true. I'm gonna lay before you a theory of space. And it's about time too. Now, there are two theories of relativity. Here is the first one. This special theory of relativity states that what's true for you might not be true for me. I'm laying down the law and I'm making it rhyme. The speed at which you're traveling affects both space and time. Let's give two twins identical clocks and send one off into space while the other dances socks. And on the day the spacefaring twin has returned, one quick examination of their clocks will confirm that the traveling twin is younger than the one who stayed at home. Time is not set in stone. Okay, now there are some hand gestures for you to join this. Here we go. Give me E equals M to the C squared. Give me E equals MC squared. Everybody now, E equals M to the C squared. Give me E equals MC squared. Okay, the general theory of relativity explains what's really going on with gravity. Though Newton would be mad at me, it's not the force at all. It's the warping of space-time that causes things to fall. If you do the necessary calculations, you'll observe mass causes space to curve. Okay, hand gestures again. Everybody, here we go. Give me E equals M to the C squared. Give me E equals MC squared. Everybody now, E equals M to the C squared. Give me E equals MC squared. Faux Schnitzel, E equals M to the C squared. Give me E equals MC squared. Two final times, E equals M to the C squared. Give me E equals M C squared. Yeah.
Musical Talk. Well, there we are. That's the incredible John Hinton, who in some ways gets better and better every year. He sets himself greater and greater challenges, and succeeds all the more impressively each time. So, how can you find out more about the Ensonglopedia of Science, and indeed John? Well, he gave his details just then, but they're worth repeating. If you want to find out more about John and all his projects, you can. It's www.whoisjohnhinton.com. And John is John, and Hinton is Hinton. Whoisjohnhinton.com. And as he says, he's an actor, director, writer, singer-songwriter, teacher, juggler, and science communicator. And it seems amazing that you can squash all those things into one person, but it seems that you can. And the website for the Ensonglopedia of Science is now www.ensonglopedia.com. And I hope that means that, as John suggested in the conversation, there will be future Ensoglopedias coming both to Edinburgh and nationally on tour for many years to come. And I'll spell Ensonglopedia, by the way, ENSONGLOPEDIA.com. Well, as I said earlier in the programme, this is a bumper episode, and we've got 2 more wonderful musical shows still to discuss. So let's not waste any more time getting to those. In a minute, we'll hear from Luke Montague about The Silence Between Us, his new musical opening in Liverpool on the 19th of July. But before that, let's hear another audio blog from David Herzog about Chwedl, Fairy Tales from Wales, which is heading for this year's Edinburgh Festival Fringe. So, it's my great pleasure to hand over to someone who is as popular as he's about to tell you he is. It's David Herzog.
Hello again, musical talkers. It's your favorite American, Dave. Thanks for having me back on the podcast again, as always. And I am back with another Edinburgh Festival Fringe update for our show, Chwedl, Fairy Tales from Wales. Now, since we've last spoken, we have finished up work on the script, we have started blocking, and we are now into the final couple of months running up to our Edinburgh run. And since we have finished our script, that means we finally have our completed story, and now I can tell you exactly what Chwedl is going to be about. What we have now landed on is a story about a character called Gwen, and the story opens with a tragedy that besets her family. And because of this tragedy and the mystery surrounding it, Gwen is raised by her grandfather, and the grandfather, to ensure the safety of Gwen, keeps her hidden away in the family cottage. And by the time we properly meet Gwen at the beginning of the show, she is coming of age, and her grandfather is in ill health. With nobody to properly look after her and to fend for her, Gwen has to take her first steps into the real world. But of course, what she discovers in the real world is anything beyond reality itself. Gwen discovers the fairy world of Old Wales, and she meets some unlikely characters who help her along her quest to not only find out about herself and what she is capable of, but these characters from Welsh mythology and Welsh folklore help Gwen achieve her ultimate goal of discovering her family's true history and helping her to uncover the mysteries surrounding her family tragedy that we had at the beginning of the story. So interlaced with all of this, like I said before, is going to be hopefully lots of songs, lots of dancing as well, all these beautiful little cultural tidbits that make Wales the interesting country that it is today, as well as it was back then when the story takes place. I hope that's enough story to whet your appetites for now. I don't want to give away too much, because anybody who's going to be at Edinburgh this August, I would love for you to come and see the show and discover all the intricacies of the plot yourself firsthand. And you can, of course, do this by buying your tickets now at edfringe.com. You can also follow the show Chwedl, Fairy Tales from Wales on Facebook. And to make things even more interesting for this blog entry, I have yet again more fascinating recordings from our rehearsal session. Like I said, we are now firmly entrenched into the blocking and rehearsal process. So let me take you directly to a couple of moments that myself and my wife April had while writing and preparing this show. Enjoy!
Can I focus for a moment on, I'm just under Act 1, Scene 4, where it says Gwen is led into the centre of the Fairy Falls, because I think what I'm about to bring up might help speed up rehearsals a little bit. I imagine Fairy Falls, I've actually got this stuff in the car, you know, all the blue stuff I've got.
Yeah.
But we're going to need a certain number of people. 2 people as fairies, so we're in character as fairies, one either side, waving the falls that she walks through. Doesn't have to be this way, we can do it a different way, but let's say there's 2 people, so you've got Gwen, you've utilised 2 more people, Bloss is on a drum, which leaves one person to maybe do the rain stick.
could be very nice, because especially if we do that, I could see you guys on a level, a raised cube, or like standing on top. I don't know if there's even possible to get to the top of the seating area easily, but as long as you're stood slightly above and doing that, because if you're doing this, that's great for a river, but if you're up above doing it, that looks really cool for a waterfall.
So let's say, sorry, I know there's now a table in the way. Let's say that you're the other fairy.
Yeah.
So I'm up here, am I? So is this material up here? It doesn't reach to the floor. It's up here, is it?
How long is the blue stuff that you have?
Oh, I have different lengths. Let's say whatever length you want, because I can always buy some more.
Yeah, because it's... Yeah, so if I'm on the other side, we might be a bit closer together so that she could actually come through it. But it is just kind of like, and then...
Oh, I see.
Keep it as much of so
it's taller, so it's still going to the floor, but it's lovely and tall,
like a waterfall. Yeah,
I understand. We could even do that on a couple of chairs, let's face it. If we get the right... We're going to need some chairs for things. If we get the right looking chairs.
Yeah.
Some wooden chairs that could be used scene after scene after scene.
Yeah.
My only thing is, I wonder at this point whether the drumming could have stopped, whether the macabre music is us lot in harmony, so that Bloss can do the rain stick, because I think the rain stick would be a lovely touch. I think it's in keeping with the style that we're doing. So if he's not drumming, if he could do the rain stick, and we've got some eerie, and it's magical.
Yeah.
I like that.
And that's recorded too. I kind of like that melody you just invented.
Great.
Yeah.
But then could you even do, if you did thirds in a minor key, would even just thirds do the trick? Yeah, already.
Chwedl, Fairy Tales from Wales, is going to be playing at PQA venues at this summer's Edinburgh Festival Fringe, running August 23rd to the 27th. Get your tickets right now at www.edfringe.com. And like I said, follow us on Facebook as well. Now, that's not the end of my beautiful voice for this episode's recording of Musical Talk. I also, for good measure, have an interview to share with you that I conducted with Luke Montague. And Luke is the author of a brand new musical that's opening in Liverpool on July the 19th, and the show is called The Silence Between Us. And according to the press release, the show focuses on a British soldier whose experiences at the outset of World War II leave him injured and mentally traumatized. The story explores attitudes to mental health at the time and the wider implications of armed conflict in relation to families and wider society. So let me take you straight to that interview that I had with Mr. Montague, and he can tell you all about this fantastic show and what it has to offer. Mr. Montague, welcome to the program.
Hi guys, really appreciate me having me on your show. Looking forward to having the interview with you. So, over to you.
Luke, why don't you begin by telling us what The Silence Between Us is all about?
Well, The Silence Between Us is a brand new musical, and it's based in World War II, early World War II, just after it all started in 1940. And it follows the soldier Arthur Johnston and his wife Mary Johnston, and it's basically their story and how the war affected them. So whereas most musicals out there, such as Oh What I Love the War, it's more about the battle, this really gets really deep into what the soldiers and the families went through, really, because it was really important to me to have their sort of story told. And it was also a great way to get an awareness out there for mental health. Because back in the 1940s, it wasn't known as PTSD, it was known as shell shock. And people weren't really allowed to talk about the feelings and what they were going through. There was a stiff upper lip, and they had to just carry on with it. And nowadays, although there's a lot more help out there for PTSD within soldiers, and a lot more help if people do feel depressed or anxious about the stuff that they've seen or gone through, it's still a very taboo subject on whether to talk. What I'm hoping this show will do is just get the people to say, no, it is fine to not be okay, and it's fine to just talk. But above all that, it's a beautiful love story between a husband and wife and how they met.
So tell us how you came about writing this particular show. What particularly inspired you?
Wow, what inspired me to write the show? To be honest, I've always had a massive love of the era of 1940s 1940s and World War II. I loved learning about it as a kid, loved learning about the First World War, and I always knew I wanted to write something that was World War based, but I didn't quite know to the extent. Originally it started out as a play 4 years ago, and I showed it to a very dear friend of mine, Holly, and she said, you know, this could work as a musical, and I said, well, I can't write songs. The script story is fine, but I cannot write songs for the life of me. So she said, okay, well, let me have a go. And then a week later, she literally wrote 12 songs, which was, you know, really incredible on her part, because I must have thought, wow, we must have something really good here for her to have that sort of inspiration just to write that many songs. And as I was saying before, with the mental health awareness within it, as it is hard to talk about mental health in general, I think it's particularly hard to talk about it within soldiers. And I'm not saying this musical can, you know, change the world and get everyone talking, but I think it's nice to put it out there and say, do you know what, it is actually okay to talk about it. It's not a taboo subject, and there is help there for people who want it.
Brilliant. So tell us a little bit more about the creative team itself.
So in the creative team, there's myself, I wrote it and I'm directing it. We have Holly Campbell, who's a lyricist, and we went to university together and we're graduating this year. The composers are Daniel Greenwood and Peter King, who also am in a band with. So it's quite a very close-knit team. And also Pete and Dan wrote any additional lyrics that were needed for the show, like little fillers, to change the odd lyric around to sort of befit the time, really. So we've all known each other many years, and it was really nice of them to sort of jump on board this little journey with me, because, you know, I didn't know what I was doing in a sense of how to put it on. So we were all sort of learning together with the university, and to put on a project together, it was nice that we could all share the sort of benefits, really. When it comes to the style of music, I say there's quite a mixture of styles. So we've got love ballads, you know, love songs. But then when we get further into the show, we get kind of a bit rocky. You know, when Arthur talks about his mental health and he wants people to listen about what he's actually going through, he gets this lovely soliloquy, which involves, you know, electric guitars, and just basically he wants to be heard. So I think there's something there for everybody in the sense of music that can experience love. Someone who likes a bit of rock. It definitely helps a lot of wider audiences.
Tell us about the cast of the production and what are they like to work with?
So, yes, the cast. We went through an audition process, so we put it out on social media, within the drama schools. We also contacted friends who might be keen to get onto the project with us. And the cast, it was great to work with a brand new cast. We worked with a lot of people from our university, the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts. We got a lot of actors from them. We also incorporated students from the Central School of Speech and Drama and University of Lancashire within Preston, who musical theatre course from there. It was so nice to see so many interested, not only students, but people within the arts. And it was great to work with them. There wasn't really any issues, because like with a brand new script, there's always going to be teething problems, in the sense of, you know, will it work? How do you want it to be portrayed? Will people like it? And the important thing that I said to the cast was the fact that I wanted them to make it their own. Because it hadn't been done before, it was important that they develop the character to how they think the characters should be within the text. Because it's nice to have them sort of free rein and develop their own journey of the character that's going to be portrayed within the show. And it was also one positive thing from the cast is that they always gave 110%. And one thing I like to do within rehearsals is play games, some brain teasers, to really get the cast sort of thinking on their feet and allow that energy to come through within the text. And then it keeps the text really new and really fresh, because we're finding new dynamics to it. And it's always great to see something come together that we've all experienced together. And I'm really hoping that the audience sort of feel the same.
All sounds absolutely brilliant. So last but not least, let us know how we can book tickets to see the show.
The best way to buy tickets for the show is to go through the website, which is the Unity Theatre Liverpool, and scroll down to July, and then we're right there. Click on the ticket link. Although you can pay on the door, it is advisable that you do buy tickets in advance. We are on from the 19th of July until the 21st. The Thursday night, the 19th, is going to be a press night. So it'd be great to have loads of people there as well to come support with us. But no, it should be a wonderful night out, and hopefully, as said before, we get that awareness out there and hopefully get people talking.
Luke, thank you so much for being on the program, and we hope to hear from you more in the future.
Thank you very much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Here's one of the songs for the show, and I hopefully get to see you then. Thank you. Goodbye.
You feel so close, yet I know that you're so far away. I picture you up by my side, oh no, it's in my mind still, like I can dream. There's an irony in wearing armor, but still feeling so damn weak. And I know that we are miles apart, but if you can hear me speak, are you staring at the stars like me, staring way up into space, connecting dots to make your face? Are you doing the same?
Beneath the silver moon, I sit and pray that you will make it back. I am so lost here on my own, and this home just isn't home when my heart's away from you. We will make it through if we keep fighting. This war may have us divided, but my soul is bound to yours. Drown out my darkest thoughts of you, memories of the night in June. I swear we'll be that way again. Are you
Staring at the stars like me, staring way up into space, connecting dots to make your face? Oh, tell me, are you staring at the stars like me, staring way up into space, connecting dots to make your face? Are you doing the same?
You can purchase tickets for The Silence Between Us at unitytheatreliverpool.co.uk. Please go along and support this fantastic show. And thanks again to Luke for being on the program. Hope to chat with him again in the future, especially if The Silence Between Us has a further life, which we hope it does after its run at the Unity Theatre. And we'll always be happy to chat with them about any future projects as well. That's all for me this week, Musical Talkers. Thanks as always for having me on. Follow me as always on Twitter at DavidHerzog06. And I'll see you at the theater, folks. And thank you very much to the very warm and kind Mr. Ribbits for adding me on to the end of one of his many lovely episodes. Bye-bye.
It was my pleasure. There we are, David Herzog there, in conversation with Luke Montague. And don't forget, you can see The Silence Between Us in Liverpool, and it opens on the 19th of July. And Chweddle, as David said, runs between the 23rd and the 27th of August at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. Well, that really is about it for this episode, so I'm not going to waste any more of your time by hanging around unnecessarily. So, what's the best way of drawing all this to one tidy conclusion? Well, I think it can be done with one simple magic word. And I'm going to see if it works now. Goodbye. Oh look, it has. This episode of Musical Talk presented by Thos Ribbits and David Herzog. Edited by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2018, except for the songs, where the copyright remains with the original creators. And my thanks to John Hinton and Luke Montague for allowing us to play some of their songs in this programme. To find out more about the world of Musical Talk and listen to past episodes, go along to our website www.musicaltalk.co.uk or subscribe to us on iTunes and follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can, at MusicalTalkThos.
The olfactory orifice of the octopus.